right, fam. Hey, welcome to the No Shave Man Cave. This is a special edition, what we will refer to as one of our bits and pieces that we're going to be doing. I think this one is going to be a really, really good one. So welcome to the No Shave Man Cave. I'm Ellie Jair.
Jay Tilley.
And we are here to talk about...
Well, we're here to talk about the one match, maybe two or three. We'll see how the conversation goes, that you would show a non-wrestling fan, or maybe somebody who's been out of wrestling for a long time, to pull them into wrestling and to show them why you enjoy it and what you think they would like about wrestling. Before we get started, I think we should talk a little bit about wrestling in general. For those that, like I said, if you're bringing somebody brand new, never watched it, what would they expect? What should they look for in a quote-unquote good match? For me, it's the ability to build the emotion in the crowd, to tell a story from beginning to end, whether the story is little minute details as working an injured leg, or whether the story is, passing the torch to a newer generation, whatever those are. And I think the psychology of a wrestling match, for people that don't understand it, sometimes can look at it and go, I don't get wrestling. It doesn't make sense to me. But when you start picking apart what goes into it in the little pieces, and you can show somebody a match that maybe exaggerates that thing, that's what I look at, and that's what I think is kind of neat, which is what led me to the one I picked. But let me get your what's a good wrestling match, and then we'll jump back, and then I'll tell you my pick, and then we can go into your picks.
Absolutely. I think a good wrestling match it's like an opera or a stage production where you have the intro, the opening bars, the music's playing, and then it starts to build like you're on a roller coaster, and you're sitting back, you're like, oh, here we go. Now they've gotten past the collar elbow hookup. Now they've gotten a couple of knife hands, and someone's gone over the top rope. Now they're on the floor. Now they're back in the ring. It starts to build. Now someone's working from underneath, which is like you said, the bad leg, like in, 84 with Dusty Rhodes and the broken leg against Ric Flair, and that story and that when he did his Common Man promo, and, now the fans are for the good guy and against the bad guy, and the more heat that they can get. And if it's a tag team match, you get the hot tag, and you get the, everybody's bumping and feeding, tables are breaking everywhere. And, I just think the story, you're drawing people in.
Yep.
And then the ending is you're just spent at the end. And that's, as my wife calls it, it's a male soap opera.
Yep. A
bunch of dudes oiled up in underwear, which I don't necessarily agree with that part, but absolutely the intro, the build, the end. Voila.
Yep. And I think part of that goes into all it is the physicality too.
Right.
Yes, all of it's there, and it is what it is. Say what you will, the F word, the scripted word, all that stuff, fine, whatever. Getting dropped on the back of your head or on your neck or through a table, it hurts, it sucks, it's not going to be fun. So the match I picked, and I went through a few, I won't tell the other ones I went through till you give me yours, and then we can kind of back talk some, but the one I picked was The Rock and Hogan from WrestleMania 18.
Whew.
So I've said it on a couple of our podcasts before, but I think so a couple reasons I picked that. If I'm bringing a non-wrestling fan in, someone who's probably never watched it or maybe knows a little bit but never got into it, one of the things I look at is it's two names you know.
Right.
Hulk Hogan is a name, whether a wrestling fan or not, you know him. And then The Rock is the number one movie maker in America, Dwayne Johnson. So you have the iconic names, the two iconic names. The WrestleMania 18 package leading up to it, it kind of tells you the story. The good guy, bad guy, the Rock trying to defend against, I think, Hogan coming in as a New World Order, and the build to it. But what, to me, sets that match, in my mind, forefront, holy crap, probably one of the better matches I've seen, if not one of the best. Not necessarily the physicality, because Hogan was getting up in his age, but the emotions in that match.
Right.
The fact that they stood in the middle of that ring for felt like 10 minutes, and the crowd going insane. Hogan chants, who's supposed to be the bad guy. Rock chants. The volume of cheers coming out of that and the noise. And just talking about it now, I get goosebumps because I remember watching it live going, holy cow, this is something special. And then just them playing it, they knew. So they take their turns looking at the crowd. They take their turns building it up. Then the match starts. And nobody in that crowd is booing or cheering either one of them. It's a very fair, we love everybody. And at this point in his career, Hogan was the bad guy. And up until this match, Hogan was booed and the bad guy. And the match itself just kept building on that. And you get to the ending, you go through the match, you get the exchanging punches and the boos and the yays. But as the match goes on, it kind of starts rotating, and now they're cheering Hogan and booing The Rock.
Yeah.
And then it rotates again, and you're cheering The Rock and booing Hogan. The match was so well put together. I'm sitting here thinking, I can't tell you some of the high spots. I can tell you the end. The double leg drop, he kicks out, you get a rock bottom. The end was great. The physicality of the match was okay. It wasn't a 5-star, top of the line, oh my gosh, Omega versus Will Ospreay kind of match. It was a emotional match. And I think I had a hard time going, okay, do I pick a match where, wow, you're just amazed at everything going on, the physicality, the as Moxley calls it, the beautiful violence. But I think as somebody coming into watching it who's never watched it before, to me, having the two known names, hearing the emotion, seeing the emotion, watching the kind of build, the not over the top, well, I mean, it's all over the top, but the not over violent, bloody matches or insanely like dropping in through a table and getting up like no selling. Like they did a very good job in this match for someone who I think who's never watched wrestling to go, oh, I know these two names. Oh man, like I know who I'm supposed to cheer for and who I'm supposed to not cheer for just by the way the crowd's acting. And then you get the finish and The Rock goes over, so the Hogan's passing the torch on to The Rock. And this is right as The Rock is kind of hitting that peak, and he goes on to do amazing things. And then you get the NWO come out at the end, and the NWO attacks Hogan. And they beat him down because he showed respect by shaking The Rock's hand. So then you get The Rock come back in and save Hogan. And then you get another 5 minutes of them cheering with the crowd and doing the Hogan's pose and helping each other out of the ring. It's just, that match to me, this is a perfect example of this is wrestling. It's the drama. It's the crowd interaction. It's the telling of a story. It's the ending. And then it's the continuation of a story that you want to see later on. And that's the one I picked. Yes, there were many others I could have gone with. Some recent ones, some really, really older ones, like Dusty Rhodes and those. But that's the one that I think is a non-wrestling fan. I can go in and say, hey, you know who Hulk Hogan is, right? Oh, yeah. Hey, you know The Rock, right? Yeah. Check this out.
Yeah, if you can get just a casual or not even casual fan, just someone who knows, like you said, there probably isn't an American or really a human that doesn't know who Hulk Hogan is.
Right.
Or if you just passively mention, Hulk Hogan, he was at the Wrestle match thing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you mean WrestleMania, the Rock and Wrestling connection with MTV and his cartoon and Tell You What, Brother, everybody knows that, and Hulkamania Running Wild.
The awful movies he did.
Awful movies, and that's why
Thunder in Paradise, the really bad TV show.
Yeah. And then, The Rock to be able to cross over to the point where he owns a wrestling or a professional football league.
Yeah.
So those are two great examples of professional wrestlers who made the transition, who even still to this day, Hulk Hogan is known both good and bad in the public eye. But yeah, great call, man. That's the funny stuff too. I'm on the Sports Reporter right now and the Sportster, and I was trying to find who produced the match, and the producer is usually previously was a wrestler, and he helps the wrestlers that are going to be in the match pick the spots and where things are going to fit in the match, and then some of the stuff gets called on the fly, and then it talked about the build-up and the 10 elements that we maybe didn't know. So like Vince went to Hogan and said, you better bring it, this better be your A game. There were things that were supposed to happen, but because folks were cheering Hulk Hogan so much during that build-up, they beat him down a little bit, and he came in and a little bit weaker element. But yeah, man, great. That's definitely a great one. So,
Yep.
yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, to me, that's like I said, it's got the elements you need. It's got the name value, and like you said with Hogan, I will say I did struggle with this one just because of some of the stuff with Hogan lately and the news. But if you take all that aside, I just it's the one that stuck out of my head. What about you?
I like it, man. And I went back and forth. I was gonna throw in a couple of different matches for different reasons, mostly nostalgia, and then just some of the folks, some of the people that I know I'm such a big wrestling fan, and I like a lot of the characters outside the ring. I actually went with the 2000 SummerSlam, the Dudley Boys versus the Hardy Boys versus Edge and Christian. Now, this is a match
That's a good one.
Wasn't supposed to be a main event, and those guys went out and they challenged each other to bring it. And they blew the roof off that place to the point where the main event, everybody was just spent. And, you still hear about that today. I'm a huge Bully Ray fan, all the things that he's doing outside of wrestling and how he's contributing. And, he's sort of a lightning rod of sorts. He says things and does things. Even, his wrestling character, he went from Bubba to Bully. Just the match, the way it built, those three tag teams exchanged the tag titles from 98 into 2000 numerous times. They just blew the place apart. The Hardy Boys, they were the pop culture. Everybody loved them. Edge and Christian were the snarky comic relief Canadians who would talk smack and do the poses and take the photos and wear the crazy sunglasses. Christian with the sunglasses before he became Captain Charisma. I'm doing the looking for my peeps right now. And then you had one of the best tag teams outside of the Road Warriors, probably in the Dudley Boys. So that just some of the spots, they just burned the place down, and that the excitement, the build, the emotion, fighting from underneath, the spear off of the ladder, and then the finish, and you were like, it didn't even matter who was going to come out the winner. And yeah, so for that reason, I went with Edge Christian versus the Hardy Boys versus the Dudley Boys.
Yeah, that's a strong one. It's funny, I forgot. I don't want to say forgotten about the match, but it was in my files somewhere. Yeah. And as soon as you said it, I was like, oh man, I remember that. Yeah. Was that their TLC one or no? This was just their straight triple threat. Because I remember their TLC one, right, and that was blow the doors off amazing too. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good one. And I like it because I've given a singles and now you've given a tag, three-way tag. So two good starting points. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a strong call out.
What were some of the other matches that you went back and forth and were like, oh, and like we've talked about, and kind of a spoiler, or maybe a teaser because we won't give our final answer, but my match had three tag teams that arguably could be on anybody's Rushmore.
Yep.
Your match had easily two wrestlers that could be on anybody's Rushmore for different reasons, whether it was what they did for wrestling, what they've done after wrestling, the character, a good guy, bad guy, like Hogan could be on two different Rushmores, the greatest face and the greatest heel.
Yeah.
So it's like, wow. So we'll start peeling some of those out as we move along. But what other matches were competing for your number one?
So part of it is probably recent biasms, because the other two that were really strong in my head, and I mentioned earlier, was Will Ospreay and Kenny Omega, Wrestle Kingdom 17, the one that just happened. I cannot believe, again, I like quoting Moxley, the beautiful violence in that match, the wrestling beautiful violence, the story they told, the run up to that match, and the work they put in to make it look like they really hated each other, and then the physicality and just some of the jaw-dropping things that happened in that match. Yes, it was an old school style where the selling maybe wasn't always there and whatnot, but I thought that was a pinnacle, just really great match. Another one pretty recent that was on my list was the Young Bucks and the Lucha Brothers in the cage. All Out. I don't remember which one, but that match, the same thing, the storytelling, the masks and the bloody mask and the thumbtacks on the foot or in his shoe and all that stuff. I thought that was a really good. That would be I would show probably that one to somebody who I know likes maybe this really big action movies and the kind of doesn't mind the gore and the blood, because that one got real bloody and gory.
Right.
And that's kind of why I disqualified it, because it's not for everybody. And then same with the Omega and Will Ospreay match. It's very Japanese style, where it starts kind of slow and slowly builds. And now most wrestling does, but Japanese style kind of has that slow, and then they get kind of hard hitting, and that same thing. It gets a little over the top with the violence. And that's kind of why I was like, okay, well, anybody I could hand this match with, it won't offend anybody. Well, other than Hogan and some of the stuff he's done. But overall match-wise, I just felt like that was the one. There were some other ones I could think of. There were some Dusty Rhodes matches that I was looking into, looking back to some of the old Ric Flair stuff. Looking at, heck, even if you more recent vibes, the Cody Rhodes, Seth Rollins in the cage, where he tore his pec off. Just for that whole reason alone, that match was over the top.
The theatrical piece to it, so that's the emotion part. And now you're drawing people in. You instantly feel bad for Cody. And then Seth Rollins comes in with the polka dot pants. He's just uber heel. You're making like grandma swear, like, oh, I hate you, Seth, you son of a. And just, that's the perfect, you get everything going. I honestly thought you were going to go with a Bret Hart match.
There were some on my list. Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels had some great ones. Now, I mean, overall, probably one of my favorite all-time wrestlers was Bret Hart.
Right.
But as far as, like I said, showing somebody something to get him into wrestling, I think as much as I love Bret Hart, and I would probably suggest this to people to go watch some of his stuff, as far as a first match to watch, he's so technical, and there's so many little things that as you become a bigger wrestling fan, you catch on that he does in matches. Yeah. I think if I were to show somebody like my daughter or, something like, who knows, somebody that's never watched wrestling, if I went and showed them like Bret Hart and Kevin Nash or any of those really good matches that I watch now and go, oh my gosh, like, man, he's limping really good. And, he knew how to twist that around. Right. To them, it would go over their heads. So I was something pretty easy, pretty basic, a couple slaps, couple chops, couple body slams, because I just figured I didn't want to overthink it. I wanted something very simple to watch, very open story. And that's why, I could give you a list of Bret Hart matches that I think as a more seasoned wrestling fan, hell, maybe that's a Rushmore we can add too as best matches. Oh man, I don't think I could cut it down to 4. Yeah. Maybe best matches of each decade.
Right.
But I just think as you become more seasoned into wrestling, you would be able to appreciate those matches more. Just like, the Okada Omega series. Yeah. I would absolutely mind-blowing matches, but I wouldn't start somebody with those because there's so many intricate little things that as a novice wrestling fan you could miss, that if you went and watch, and you probably think it's boring, but then if you go back now that you've experienced wrestling and watch more of it and know some of the little things that go into it, you go, oh man, that's really good.
Yeah, I thought about if you wanted to draw some fans in, and I like the way you looked at it. You were like, hey, I've got to have names that are recognizable because you have a little bit of brand recognition in there. I was thinking that, you have an RBD match in there, or he always did a lot of the, fight from underneath. He was never, during the original iteration of ECW, he was never the world champion, but he was Mr.
Oh my gosh, I never realized that. Yeah, but you knew him as think he was
Monday night or Friday night or whatever.
Yeah,
and he was always fighting from underneath, and that's why I love Dusty.
Yeah,
and because he was the common man, and he was good stuff. So so there it is. We've got our match that we would say, hey, I want you to sit down, check this out, so you understand why I'm such a big fan. I went with the match from 2000. And it was Edge, Christian, Hardys, and the Dudleys. And Jay Tilley went with Hulk and The Rock. Rock. So can't go wrong there.
Yep, WrestleMania 18. Don't get it wrong, because they did a Raw match, I believe, after that was nowhere near as good.
Yeah.
WrestleMania 18 is the one to watch. It was fantastic.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, hey, thanks for checking us out here in the Man Cave. And as always, you can find us on all our socials at the No Shave Man Cave. So you can check us out on TikTok, on Twitter, on Instagram. Make sure you check our YouTubes out. And to that guy in Belgium, hit us up, man. Let us know who you are. I really appreciate it. So I'm Ellie Jair.
Jay Tilley, worldwide.
And we'll see you soon on the floor.